You've never had more fun in the motion picture. This week at number 41 on the list, it's The Apartment. Welcome to Long Play Video. Welcome into the store. It's a nice Saturday afternoon. Time for another of my 100 top movies. Number 41, which is obviously episode 60, because we all know the maths now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even though that really annoys me. I know there will be a listener who it really annoys. A listener and sometimes guest who it will make them itch the back of their hands, the fact that it's episode 60 and it's number 41 on the list.
Hey, if you spent more time on a blackboard writing some maths on it, you guys would understand this and be fine with it.
We leave it to you and little girls and young versions of famous actors. And yeah, here we are at number 41. So we have I have an old-fashioned movie poster to hand over to you this time, rather than the DVD or even a video. I've gone proper old school, and I will hand you the poster. What are they? The billboard, the bill that they would have used. Framed from the store, from the wall of the store, for you to tell us the film.
Well, this looks quite funny, isn't it? From this amazing billboard. So it's called The Apartment. Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, Fred McMurray. I don't know Fred McMurray, but I know the other two. Movie-wise, there has never been anything like love-wise, laugh-wise, or otherwise-wise. That's the quote, which takes up... Well, I don't even know. Is that the quote? I think that's like the description of the movie, and that takes up about a third of this poster. So the rest of it is just orange, and there's just two people. It looks like they're about to run away, looking back, and that's all it says. And then there's a pair, and then I guess this is a pair of keys to the apartment, the said apartment. Yeah. So yeah, it's not helped me at all, other than I now know who's in it. So yeah,
his head's strangely out of proportion to the rest of his body on that poster as well.
Yeah, his head is like 4 times the size of her head. That's maybe why she's trying to run away. She's like, who is this alien?
Yeah, so this movie is all about an exceptionally large-headed man chasing after someone. Is that why I like it? Have you? So do you know anything? You say you know Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine. On the you also see Billy Wilder on the tag of the keys.
Oh yeah,
it's just an old poster. It's just faded in the sun from the big window in front of the.
I couldn't quite see that. I'm trying to lift the billboard. It's too heavy.
What do you know?
Jack Lemmon's obviously classic, and Shirley MacLaine. Yeah, two of those. I don't know Fred McMurray, but yeah, very classic actors. Obviously, it's. I mean, I'm guessing this is an old film, right?
Yeah,
you know, from 50s, 60s.
60, yeah, 1960.
Yeah,
Billy Wilder. Okay. Do you know who Billy Wilder
Billy
is?
Wilder? No. Maybe if I see them, I would. But yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what this is like. I don't really watch many classic films. Is it in color?
It is not. It's in black and white. Funnily enough, it wins best picture in black and white. Do you know what film is the next film to win the Oscar in black and white after this film?
Well, it'd have to be The Artist, surely.
Yeah, there we go. You see, not only are you getting to watch all these great films, you're also improving your movie trivia for movie night as well. So
see, you say improving, I say wasting some useful information that's now left my brain, and I have that instead.
I don't know where I live anymore because I now remember the apartment.
Yeah, they'll be like, where are you? What are you? And I'm like, well, did you know?
Not including Schindler's List, which isn't completely in black and white and is an Oscar winner.
Okay, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
And obviously they had color in the 60s, right? So they've
yeah,
opted for black and white. Yeah.
they have opted
Yeah.
for black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, this is 1960. So Billy
Mm.
Wilder. Well, in this movie and also Billy Wilder, it's kind of like, as you say, like the classics and kind of going
Yeah.
through the classics of films. I think there's not actually too many on my list that I would sort of say are like classic movies, but I
Yeah.
think as you kind of go down the rabbit hole of like watching classic movies, for me, there's probably like, there's 10 films that if you're into film and you're into cinema, you should have seen, because they're
Mm.
just like big movies, right? And you sort of you go down that sort of path, like your Apocalypse Now, like Shining,
Mm.
Casablanca, Citizen Kane, just so
Yeah.
that sort of what, yeah, you kind of experience them. And then like with that, you kind of get introduced to directors, so you start watching Kubrick, you're watching Hitchcock, Coppola, Scorsese, you start sort of just seeing
Mm.
the sort of the classics, filmmakers as well. And then I
Yeah.
think when you sort of do that, you start to kind of, yeah, as you go sort of further down the rabbit hole, almost, you sort of start to see this, sort of the people that actually had an influence that may not be as popular now, but really had the influence. And you might recognize like the first film that they've been in, but then there's like tears
Mm.
underneath it. So I would sort of
Yeah.
put Billy Wilder in that, right? So Billy Wilder
Yeah.
wrote and directed Some Like It Hot as an example.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone's heard of Some Like It Hot. Most people probably have some sort of
Yeah.
reference to it. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it's sort
I've
of
seen that.
it's almost the kind of the next level down where you get the apartment, and then you sort of almost the next level down where you get Double Indemnity, which is like almost sort of birth noir.
Yeah.
And then kind of Sabrina, which is also another one that he did, and then and then there's like 40 other films, because it's the 60s, so actually there was actually like
Yeah.
6 directors who were allowed to make
Yeah.
movies, but there's just so many other films that then starts getting A, quite obscure, or B, quite kind of geeky and film geek type stuff.
Yeah.
This I think The Apartment, I think, is a perfect example of like not going too far down the rabbit hole. Right? This is quite a
Mm.
famous film. This is like,
Yeah.
I would say Something Like It Hot is probably his most famous film. This and probably
Yeah. Yeah.
Sunset Boulevard are kind of also films that I think if you say the title, people are like, oh yeah, I kind of, I've heard of it or kind of
Mm.
know about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't go too far down into sort of the real geekiness, but like this is like a great 1960s comedy, which is a sort of genre onto itself. But like
Mm.
there is a classic. There's going to be in the like top 50 films of any list anywhere. And
Yeah.
I think like I wanted something in my list that kind of represented that and represented sort of
Yeah.
love of sort of those types of films, and also like the discovering the films as you go, that
Yeah.
almost you should, if you're into film, then they're just some classics that you should watch, and this I think is definitely
Yeah.
one of them, because of the pacing, because the script is amazing, like the performances are amazing, the fact that it's in 1960 but it's quite relevant now, and the impact it had at the time,
Yeah.
especially because it was a fairly controversial kind of topic in 1960. Like, yeah,
Yeah. So
that's what this represents.
so then you're saying obviously, yeah, like Some Like It Hot. Like I know that film, I've seen that film, and I'd imagine
Hmm.
that's probably, I don't know, in my mind, I'd say between the two, that's probably more well known. So
Hmm.
yeah, if I obviously don't know this film, but why would this one make it onto your list more than say that?
Yeah.
Is
So
it like the
first of all,
script,
obviously,
pacing?
yeah. I mean, first of all, obviously, I'm not going to choose the more obvious example because that's my
Yeah,
personality.
because that's just you, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is the script in this one. Like Someone Like It Hot is, I think the premise of Someone Like It Hot is really good. The performances from everyone,
Yeah.
including Marilyn, although she was slated, and Billy Wilder and Marilyn didn't get on particularly well after that film. Like,
Yeah.
but the performances are good. But there's 3 or 4 scenes in it that are just a bit, especially the music scenes where you just like, it just completely slows down and just doesn't,
Yeah,
it
okay.
just doesn't go anywhere. obviously cast your mind back all those weeks and years ago when we were talking about Clueless being a top 10 comedy script. Like this is going to be a top 5, and almost the top 10 is going to have 4 other Billy Wilder movies in it. His ability to write dialogue and yes, the scripts of all of his films are always really good, and I think this again like is legitimately funny, is a comedy, but also has a lot more to it, and is a comedy in 1960 isn't quite the same as a comedy in in the 2000s, right? So I think for me this is a better script than any of his others that I've watched so far. I think I watched it again recently, just a couple of years back, and I just think it really, really holds up of like as an example of what it is and what it does, but also even now, I think it's got a lot of stuff that's still relevant even today, about class, about about kind of morals, about like that journey that people go on.
And so is it a comedy then? I mean, I'm guessing, with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, I'm presuming it's going to be more on the comedy side than anything else.
Yeah, it is a comedy, but I think in the 60s they were more aware that comedy and tragedy are kind of just how you look at things. So it is a comedy, but tonally it goes a little bit all over the place. But you have to sort of keep remembering that it is a comedy, and there are like there's very good slapstick in it. There's just, again, the script, there's just there's just so many bits. I mean, you say from the poster, like when they say love wise, laugh wise, or otherwise wise, obviously like that is the quote from last week, right? That's the way it crumbles, cookie wise. That gets brought up a few different times, and there's some great turns of phrases and stuff like that just I still laughed at it. But it's
okay, so it's got tight, strong dialogue there, but it's a comedy of like the 60s. And then I'd imagine then so I'm thinking comedy 60s, it's probably not going to be overly long. The pacing I'd probably imagine will be pretty quick as well then. How long is it?
Just over 2 hours actually. So it's again
surprising
like
for a 60s film.
No, not really. There were tons of long movies. It's a bit of a thing that like people think that there weren't 2-hour movies back in the day. There's always been 2-hour movies. Like they've always. I think maybe it was the 80s that. Well, but even in the 80s, like in the indie films and stuff, I feel fairly sure that they're pushing 2 hours.
That would be interesting. Actually, we need one of our Uber fans, to find out for each decade what is the average like length of a film. That I mean, in my mind, I just kind of thought the 60s films would be shorter. I don't know why.
Back to the Future, 1 hour 56. It's the 90-minute movie. I think people. I think maybe it was they were cut down for TV or something, but
maybe there were more. Is it the 80s or the 90s where you just had more of those sort of quick like comedies and a comedy or like a rom-com? I think generally you'd pace it around 90 minutes, wouldn't you? So I don't know, maybe just more of those came up, and I don't know. Definitely. Whatever happens now, I'm like, if it's a 2-hour movie, I'd love to have an interval so I can go and get like some more refreshments, stretch my legs.
You know what? You put your deck chair next to the gelato machine. You can just reach over and grab another tub.
Get in. Oh, what a dream! What a dream! The life that we live in.
This is the type of luxury that you can live in.
Well, I'm intrigued by this one. I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not. I feel like I might. I do quite like Jack Lemmon, so I think that might be good. And I have no real idea what this is about at all. So I think I'm intrigued to see what it's going to be like. And
how do you feel generally about sort of older movies? This is the third oldest film on the list.
Yeah. I'm not normally really. I don't really watch many old movies, I would say, but that's not to say that I wouldn't necessarily like them.
Out of the classics, The ones
Yeah,
that I
so like some
mentioned, or
like it
ones
hot.
that are just
Yeah.
classics. Which ones would, like, what are the classic movies you would say that you've seen, like from like the 60s and 70s?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of like Casablanca and those type of movies. I haven't really seen many of those.
Mm.
I have seen some like it hot. Um, that was good. That was funny. I didn't really used to watch classic movies. Um, I just remember watching a lot of Clint Eastwood films when I was younger. That was about the only thing I really used to
I
watch.
mean, I'd definitely, the good, the bad, the ugly, I'd definitely include on
Yeah,
that list, right? That's something that
yeah,
you've got to, if you're into
yeah,
film at all, you've got to have seen that film, mate, because
yeah. Okay,
everything
yeah,
else is based on it. So
yeah. So yeah, I
that, and
don't know.
Every
I'm
Which
not
Way But
really.
Loose,
Yeah,
obviously
exactly.
is
And then each
classic cinema.
yeah, and each of them you're like, is this still that just the same character? Is this has this changed?
Grumpy old
Have we
guy,
not
but
seen this
he's
one
23.
already? Yeah. But no, I'm intrigued by this one. It's not necessarily an era that I'd normally go to.
Mm,
But it does sound intriguing, and it does sound like you got some good writers, and yeah, if the script's really good, I mean, you put it out there top 5. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? So
yeah.
can't be
Yeah.
denying
Well,
that.
funny. I mean, this is written by Billy Wilder and IAL Diamond, who was his
Mm.
writing buddy. And that there's various reports from sort of actors and actresses that there was no ad-libbing. You had to say what was on the script, all the way down to, I think there's a
Oh
scene where
wow,
someone says, yeah, they're short, or they're tiny, and
yeah,
the actress would say, oh, they're kind of short, or they're kind of tiny, and they would
yeah,
call cut and be like, no, there's no kinda, like, that's not the line,
yeah.
read the line. So
Oh
yeah, they
wow,
were very aware of it. And yeah, one best picture, one best director, best screenplay, best art
yeah,
direction, although that was split between black and white and color at the time, and then best film editing. And it was
yeah.
nominated for a whole bunch of other things as well, including like best actor, best actress, best supporting actor.
I feel
So
like we
yeah.
could have won an Oscar in the 60s, Andy. Like, I feel like, there's probably only about 4 films out. There's probably an easy chance of scooping some kind of Oscar up.
I'm not sure how people were listening to podcasts. We would have been on on record.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, changing the world? Um, all right, so it's a
I
big
mean,
Oscar winner.
there were a few people in the 60s that were quite good at making films, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
Just one or two.
yeah. Just a couple. Yeah. All right, well, let's get this on.
Yeah,
Let's see how it is. 2 hours. It's a good length. So
yeah.
yeah, let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
we'll give it a go, and we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to go and do my prediction, actually. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
think you
you
should
you
for this
you
one.
settle in, surround yourself with snacks, and
Yeah,
we'll
prepare.
and we'll put it on. Okay, Kev's just gonna go and send himself out with it. What is he gonna think of this? I think he's gonna like this. I think it could go two ways, because I do think that it's not that it's romantic, but obviously there's a love story at the center of it. But I think the comedy comes through, and it's just so well put together that I think that will be the thing. So I think he's gonna like it. I think he's gonna like the script, because there's so many good one-liners. But we'll have to see after the jump.
Sweet, I think is how I sort of
Ah,
describe it, which
nice.
I thought was nice. And then I thought, when you think about the concept of what actually goes on in this film, is that a good way to describe it? Possibly not, but it kind of feels sweet. I think still, it's a
Yeah,
nice, yeah, it's a nice little classic, isn't it? It does feel
yeah.
good.
I think
Um,
that's the funny thing, isn't it? Like, script-wise and how it's shot, it's a
yeah,
comedy, but
yes,
story-wise, it's a tragedy.
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
like,
it,
that
yeah,
that's why it's so good. Is just
mm,
because actually the story it has a lot to say, and it's not that it's depressing, but I think there's a
No.
lot going on and a lot of like, judgment. And then, but like the way that it's put together and the script itself with sort of the funny lines, makes it a comedy. So that means it's a comedy that actually has something to say, which I think is what I like about it so much.
Yeah, and I think that's what's clever about it, isn't it? That there is comedy there, but it's overlaid with, like you say, that slightly more, I wouldn't say disturbing, but like dark plot over the top.
Yeah.
And it's all, there's all, like you said, it's all comedy around it. But you're like, hold on a minute, this story shouldn't be funny because, this guy's life is getting ruined. And also all these married men are just having affairs with women. And you're like, this shouldn't be a comedy. So yeah, it was a clever a mix of the two, and obviously having the actors as well really helps. They're so good. Obviously the old school actors.
Yeah. Where does
a few films before?
Where does your sympathy lie with him? Like, what to take me on the journey of like the sympathy at the beginning, because he's obviously giving the apartment away and having to stay outside, but then I think his really interesting journey.
Yeah, I think like even before then, and the opening scene I thought was really good. I really enjoyed the opening scene. The way he sort of sets it out, he does a few facts. It tells you so much of the story immediately. He's all right, we're ready to go. And then he waits at work for like another hour or two, and I'm like, oh, I already feel sorry for this guy. Why is he working more than anyone else? That was it for me. At that point, I was like, this has already gone bad. Get out of that office. It's not going to make any difference to your life. Let me tell you.
I love everything about that office, though. We'll come back to that. But yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. But yeah, and then obviously, the premise that he's just handed his apartment over to the executives of the office who were trying to sleep with their mistresses, which obviously you'd probably think, there's going to be other apartments they could have had, or hotels, they probably could afford it.
Well, funnily enough, not hotels at the time. Like hotels weren't allowed to like do rooms almost by the hour, because it's the sort of coming out of the 50s. So actually the Vice Squad would go round to hotels and make sure that it was only married couples at hotels. So like, maybe other apartments, but that's actually like part of the thing, is that you wouldn't be able to get a hotel for a couple of hours in New York because you would get arrested. Yeah. And that's also the really interesting timing of it, is that actually this is like almost one of the first films, or American films especially, because they had this thing called the Hays Code, which was all about like a kiss could only be 3 seconds long, and you weren't allowed more than that, and you weren't allowed to show like it's really crazy the things that you couldn't show in it. So actually, like, this is a super daring film at the time, talking about infidelity and stuff like that. And it was like just on that cusp that actually, there were limited options if you wanted to cheat on your wife at the time. So
oh, that's probably a good thing. Yeah, wow, that's interesting. I guess you're right. You don't really think about these things now, but there would have been so many restrictive rules that prevented things like this happening. And maybe this was a film then in its own right that sort of, set everyone else on that path, opened up the doors and moved it along. Not necessarily to infidelity, but more so of different things being allowed on cinema.
It just basically birthed Airbnb as a concept. So
when you just said that was the first thing that came into my mind. I was like, I wonder if that's what the Airbnb guy said. So no, I thought it was, you obviously feel sorry for him all the way through. Like, he just gets walked over by everyone pretty much. Like, even when he's, he finds out about, he's trying to see the elevator girl, and they're trying to go out, and he's trying to put it together. And then she doesn't make it because she's with the other guy. And he's like, oh, that's okay. I mean, of course, you couldn't leave another guy to come to see the theater with me. That makes total sense. You're with him. And you're just like, what are you saying? No, you should be leaving this person away. And then obviously, yes. And then ultimately, at the end, you're like, what are the life lessons? Well, he doesn't get anywhere, does he? They all keep their jobs and everything. He loses his job. He has to move out of his apartment.
He does
Oh,
do a
it's
little
just
bit of
so man.
stalking, which I'm not
Oh my God,
sure.
yeah.
I'm not
That
sure
was
whether
creepy.
that's that's
Yeah.
I what I like about it is like he's just a low level scumbag. He's just like minor
Yeah.
league. He's not,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's not too bad, but he's not an amazing guy. He's like looked at her
Yeah.
records to try and
Yeah.
to try and get an
Yeah.
angle in. So it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like he's some sort of really really innocent or
Yeah.
like really great guy. He would do the
Uh,
same if he was in the same
yeah,
circumstances.
quite
But that
possibly.
like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just makes it a bit more real. And yeah, like I think
Yeah.
it's interesting whether, because also with the fact that everyone does just walk over him. I find that
Yeah.
like I lose a little bit of sympathy for him because you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
come
Okay.
on.
Have a
But then funnily
backbone.
enough, when I really love the scene when then he afterwards, after he's got the promotion and he sees her downstairs and he's like, oh, you see, actually I was using him, he wasn't using
Yeah.
me. And he sort of he sort of is almost like, I've played this so well and I've got a date with
Yeah.
that lady over there and everything's great. And you're a bit like, it does sort of make you think, oh, okay, was it actually all planned? And then he sort of walks over there and walks past
Oh
her
yeah.
and goes to the
Yeah.
newsagent. It's just such a well put together scene where you're like, oh, actually,
Yeah.
no, he's still deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
He's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to move on and do that. And I think like that's the type of scene in this movie that just there's so many of them that just so well put together. The script's great,
Yeah.
the acting's great, and like the setup is also awesome. So
Yeah. And I think, and you've got all of those other sort of, and we've said this in other films before as well. You develop some of the backstories of the other characters, but not too much. And I think that's
mm,
good. Like you've got some of the other ones, like obviously, Sheldrake. You get a little bit more of his backstory. Now he's got his family and stuff, and then you understand a little bit more. And I think that helps bring those characters to life because I think that's the thing. Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, they feed off of those. That the
yeah,
characters, bounce off of them, which really helps. But those two together were just, seamless. It's like they just, they spent their entire life together. They just work off each other so seamlessly. Like it doesn't
yeah.
feel like acting. It's just like this is just a normal day in their life. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
especially, I love it. Whereas, like when the brother-in-law does come over and the way that sort of all three of them act. And when the doctor then
Yeah.
comes in, which actually I'd never kind of noticed before, but the brother-in-law
Mm.
is like, well, what type of doctor are you? Obviously like hinting at like as an abortion doctor, which again would have been
Ah,
like completely
okay.
illegal. And that's like again a little bit more. But then when he says, oh yeah, she took the pills because of me, and you can sort of see on his
Mm.
face he's like, I'm going to get punched for this, but
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
protecting her. And I think that is, again, that's just incredibly sweet of him. And that's why he then sort
Yeah.
of he gets some sympathy. And then obviously like she kisses him on the forehead and he's like, oh, never felt better.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
that's kind of all he can expect. But again, like
Yeah.
the back and forth with the brother-in-law, and then she walks in and then she walks out, she gets her coat, she comes back in, and like again the script is
Yeah.
so well worked that like
Yeah.
everything just flows really well with it.
There were some really like strange, weird things that I noticed that I was like, oh, I don't know if this is just of the time. So I'd be keen to see if there's anything that you noticed, like when you rewatching this now, because there's probably all these little quirky things that I saw. I reckon you probably saw the first go, but I was like, I wonder if there was anything extra that I missed that
What
you think that you saw.
what were some of the examples?
Well, like they all were like randomly putting their glass out their front door, or that just like their apartment door, not even their front door. I was like, is that a thing? Did people used to just put empty glass and some used to come and clear it out? Is that what used
It
to
would
happen?
be the like the old lady downstairs who owns all of the apartments.
That's so random, isn't it? That you would just go, oh, I'll just do my glass here in a dark, apartment hallway. Hope that no one falls over it all. So random
Health
that
and
was.
safety.
Yeah, there were some great things that they did as well. There was a bit where they finished and they get out of the cab and he's like, how much is it? And he's like, oh, 70 cents. I was like, wow. Wow. You could pay
Yeah.
with a coin.
Well, when he
Yeah.
says, $85 per month for rent as well, you're just like,
Yeah.
it's a date set. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll give him $1. And you're like, oh, 30
Yeah.
cents, 30 cents tip. Thanks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like,
You're like,
now you'd be
that's why
spat
we're all
at.
paying the amount that we're paying now because people like that put the inflation up, but tipping too much. Yeah, there was some really, and obviously, yeah, I mean, we should go into the office bit then, yeah, because there was loads of things in there that you're like, wow, this is obviously, it doesn't really date it because it's of its time, right? But there were so many things that happened in there that you're like, they
Yeah.
just don't happen anymore. But yeah,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
was it
no,
that
it's
you
just
saw?
just brilliant. Yeah, I just love everything about like all of the desks. The fact that there's a
Yeah,
bell at the end of the
yeah,
work. I don't think
yeah. Ring
I've
ring,
ever
out you
had
go.
that. Yeah, you're like okay,
Uh,
like yeah, we can go now. Like
yeah,
the roller decks on the
yeah,
on the desk is brilliant. The
yeah,
place to put your coats and so yeah, I just yeah, just
yeah,
love everything about it. I mean, it does date it and does date
yeah.
it now, especially like
Of its
yeah,
time, yeah,
how far away we've moved from it. But I just
yeah,
yeah, I love it. And
yeah.
following up, the office itself is all forced perspective. So actually, like
Oh,
the
okay.
fact that it looks like that
Ah,
is because like they made smaller desks to go at the back, and they actually had then like
ah,
smaller actors play like
really?
playing yeah, so it's all like
Wow, because
yeah.
yeah, I was going to wonder that because I was like thinking, oh, they've got so many extras here just for this one scene. So, but yeah, wow, that's incredible, and that's how
Yeah.
they, and that's yeah, so that's how they
Yeah,
make
it's
it
not
feel
like
so
yeah.
full.
Usually it would be
Yeah,
like a mat or something. Because
yeah,
it's a big old office. But yeah,
yeah,
like
huge.
to make it seem like it. Then they did that, and
Yeah.
the Christmas party as well is just yeah.
Oh my
So
God,
it's
yeah.
so funny,
Drinking
like
out
people
of tiny,
dancing.
small, like paper cups. You're like,
Yeah,
that is just terrible. Yeah, and everyone dancing, and then her
everyone making
like
out
one of
in
them,
all the offices.
one of, yeah, one of the woman that was dancing on the desk like took her pearls off, and that was like,
Yeah,
woo! Everyone's gone crazy. I was like,
she'll
oh my
regret that in
Lord.
the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Where are my pearls? And then they had the old school thermometer, I thought as well. I was thinking, when he
Yeah.
puts it under his tongue in his mouth, I was like, whoa, God, I haven't used one of them for decades now. Because you just use the one in the ear now, right? That's what everyone
Yeah,
uses.
yeah,
Yeah, God, that was
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, but
oh, I love the random Cuba subplot as well about what do you think about that that guy
yeah,
Castro? And you're like,
yeah,
what? Wait, what?
yeah,
And that's
yeah. You're
the
wondering, is that just going to suddenly start going off onto some other tangent, and then they just sort of like
yeah,
that just like dissipates, and then really
yeah.
comes back up again?
Well,
Yeah.
I think you're then supposed to wonder whether the brother-in-law is actually the husband um
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
then comes into
When he
it.
comes
So
in.
yeah, but like obviously he's too tall because she says that he's like a little
Mm,
chihuahua. And that's the line
yeah.
where she kept saying yeah, he's kind of like a little chihuahua, and they would say no, there's no kinda, like don't say
Oh,
that,
okay.
that's not in the script. So
He's like a little child. There you go.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, the script does work well, so maybe that's why they're so good because they had to
Yeah.
reread it so many times, thanks to the director. How did you
Yeah.
describe this to the aliens then?
Well, yeah, I went with this is a comedy, which is a film that's designed to make people laugh. I felt like the aliens might be a bit
Curveball.
confused by it.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll be like, I thought that when we watched those other things, like The Wedding Singer and that, weren't they the comedies?
Well,
What's
wait,
this thing? I don't get it. Yeah.
what's funny about
Yeah.
this? So,
Yeah, and why is he
how
further up
about
the
you?
list? I don't understand this. I need to. Where is this Andy character? We need to talk to him.
It's time to put myself in the firing line now.
Yeah. I put a man opens up a brothel in New York in exchange for promotions at work. This is exactly how work operates on Earth. So, yeah.
But it's so because there's such the underlying like class thing to it. The fact that he's getting
Yeah.
promoted because
Yeah.
of it, and like the people that can promote him just because
Yeah.
just because
All having
obviously he
affairs as
does.
well.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe he is working hard, I guess, because he's staying there
Mm.
longer because he doesn't have anywhere to go to. But yeah,
Yeah.
the powers that be can make you or break
Mm.
you, and
Yeah.
that's that's it. Actually, it's not anything about like how good you are, or because you even
Yeah.
have that guy next to him,
Yeah.
doesn't he, who's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been here
I've
like
been here
5
longer.
years longer.
Mm.
And yeah, like yeah, it's almost, I think it's a bit of an indictment on Yeah, like,
Yeah,
okay, well, actually, you can.
I
Yeah,
think
it's not about working your way to the top. It's just about helping the people at the
yeah.
top to have affairs. So
Yeah, it's nepotism, isn't it? For sure. I think if
yeah,
that's
yeah,
one thing I'll tell my younger self is that work less hard, get to know the people at the top because yeah, you're definitely more likely to get promoted from knowing the people at the top than you are from working hard. That is
yeah.
without fail 100% accurate. So yeah,
Well,
it is weird, isn't it?
I did also. I noticed this time around that
Mm.
when he's watching the TV that there's sort of a
Yeah.
little bit of a dig about like the adverts and like
Yeah.
yeah, okay, now a word from
Now
our
for
sponsor
our
and then
yeah.
a word from our alternate sponsors.
That was great. I really
Yeah,
appreciated that.
yeah, and I guess
Yeah.
again for the '60s, like that's a bit of a yeah, I guess like fairly new, right?
Yeah.
Having a TV in your apartment, but like adverts are
Yeah.
starting to take over the world, which obviously we all know now because of Mad Men. But when
Yeah.
but when this came
The
out,
classic.
and yeah, watching this even like
Yeah.
20 years ago, you didn't have Mad Men to refer back to,
Yeah.
which I
And it's
thought was
even
interesting.
like that that's a funny scene of yeah, I mean I did think of this, I wrote that down, like, is this the OG Mad Men? But yeah, even like us watching a film of him watching TV and the
Yeah,
scene goes on a reasonable amount of
it
time, not
does.
like super long, maybe a minute or two.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
I'm
it's more
like,
than a
we are
beat
just
for sure.
watching
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, we are just watching someone watch TV. And you're like, this is a
Maybe it's
bit
the original
strange.
Gogglebox as well.
Yeah, there you go. Matt, this film was just groundbreaking. Who knew? But yeah, it was a bit strange. I was like, we're watching this a bit longer than we probably need to. But
Yeah,
yeah, maybe to your point, it was like trying to sort of set a scene of something about how that was, I guess, I don't know, big in the 60s or something. But
yeah,
were there any
yeah.
questions it asked or answered for you?
Yeah, I think I mean it kind of asks about yeah, when do you sort of do something because it's
Yeah,
the right thing to do.
yeah.
And I think that's like yeah, because it is also transactional to begin with, and then it's like okay, well he finally
Mm,
becomes a mensch, which obviously yeah, it's just you have to look that
yeah,
up to know what that means.
yeah,
But yeah, that's like a a good man.
yeah.
And I do think that's kind of because again, like, does he actually do it because he wants to be a good man, or does he do it just
Mm,
because he fancies Fran, or
yeah,
does he do it
yeah,
because yeah, he's just annoyed because he sort of realizes that he can't ever have it. I think there's so much
yeah,
nice moral ambiguity around it that actually
yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that he does it because he's super moral all of a
yeah.
sudden. It's just that he's yeah, feels
No,
like they've taken advantage of him a little bit, and yeah,
yeah.
so
It almost seems like he's just exhausted. He's like,
yeah,
I just can't do this anymore. I need some
yeah,
sleep. I'm getting ill all the time. I need something to stop this.
yeah. And
Yeah, it is.
you've taken the girl that I fancy, so
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
which is
leave.
yeah, that's a definite an extra one. And then when he goes, that's a great scene when he goes to that boss and he's talking to him and he's like preparing his speech in advance. He's like,
Yeah,
right, I've got some great news for you. I'm going to take her off your hands. And then he arrives and then the boss says exactly the same speech to
yeah,
him. And
yeah,
I was like, that was a
yeah,
very clever scene. That was very
yeah,
good.
yeah. That's
Um,
great. So he says, "Oh,
yeah.
I love her. I haven't told her yet. I thought you should be the first to know." And you're like, even with that, he still can't get out of
Yeah.
the sort of the system that he's telling his boss who's had an affair with her first. It's still that
Yeah.
like hierarchy that he just can't get out of.
He's still, yeah. I know there was and that I mean I'm going to divert slightly just to lines quickly now, but there was so many things that guy
Yeah.
has where he's like, there's a point where he says, "You see a girl for a couple of times a week, and they think you're going to divorce your wife," and you're like, "Oh my god!"
It's
It's
brilliant.
just yeah, there were some good lines. There was a bit, so I went a little bit too far there, but yeah, was
Yeah,
there
no, well, funny
anything?
with Fred McMurray especially. So he like up
Mm,
until this point, he
yeah.
was kind of yeah, very much like a sort of a main character, and so he had been in
Oh,
the
okay.
first Billy Wilder, which was Double Indemnity, which is like a noir film, which is pretty good,
Yeah.
and that kind of put him on the map. But yeah, he was almost always the hero. So this was like the
Yeah.
first
Okay.
time that he'd
Ah, okay.
played that type of person.
Like a villain.
Probably, yeah, probably not as clear cut, but like almost like Hanks being like
Yeah.
that type of like a that type of character where you don't like him for the first time.
Yeah.
And so he said, like, actually, like, loads of people would come up to him on the street, and like he says, you know, he got hit by someone from their umbrella because he was so
Wow.
nasty in this, and you know that they thought that he
Wow.
was such a nice young man, and then and Lord, like, it's such a
My
nice man,
God.
and now like he hasn't. So it was at the time, I
Yeah.
think, like a real kind of flip for him to then play
Yeah.
like, yeah, you know, someone like that. I guess
Okay.
almost in comparison, kind of like we said with Layer Cake, where you get like the old school actors to
Yeah.
play like villains and stuff. I think that
Yes.
was the equivalent of it, and it just really
Yeah.
does work because you then get to play with like people's perceptions of them as well.
Yeah. That's funny, actually, isn't it? We probably don't appreciate that as much anymore because people just flip between the two so frequently now. And
Yeah,
you're so used to it that you don't really think, oh my God, that person's playing a villain.
yeah.
But yeah, I
And you
guess at
see
the
them like so
time.
much more. That's like the actors at
Yeah,
the
true,
time.
true.
You would see them in a movie. Well, I mean, they used to spit out movies a lot more frequently, but like you wouldn't, you know,
Mm.
you maybe see them in the papers, but probably not.
Yeah.
So actually, you
Mm.
know, there was no reality show. You know, he didn't go to the
Yeah.
jungle. It was, you know, that was almost
It's missed
that was
out.
the only time you'd see him. So or you'd see
Yeah.
any of the actors. So I think it's yeah,
Yeah,
like it,
true.
yeah, it does mean
Different
that
world.
you could probably yeah do a bit more. I did that.
Was there
We're
anything?
bouncing all over the place right now, but I do.
Yeah.
One of the things that dates the film, I think, is actually that there's no
Yeah.
best friend. Like in this type of comedy, in this
Okay.
type
Yeah.
of you know film now, you would have a best
Yeah.
friend for Fran to actually talk to because I think her character is
Yeah.
really interested in it because she's
Yeah.
like to a certain extent she is the main almost like as main a character as he is,
Yeah. Mm.
and like it's not a fantastic character. She doesn't get you don't sort of get her in a life that much, but also for especially for the time, you don't just see her through his eyes or through like
Yeah.
the male eyes. She does actually have her own character. Like I think the bit where he gives her the $100, like you just
Yeah.
see her face
Mm.
collapse, and you like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously a fantastic actress anyway, but like, yeah, she's so
Yeah.
good in that. And I think that's almost like now lazy, not lazily. That's a bit judgmental, but like now you would have her like talk to her sister and say, you know, and say like all of the things that she's supposed to be feeling. Oh, you know, he's
Yeah.
doing it again. Oh, I feel so useless. I feel like it would all be like
Yeah.
out there and had to be
Scene
said, which is
explained.
yeah, exactly. Which is kind of what
Yeah.
the best friend is for in these types of comedies, whereas they just let her performance tell it. And so
Yeah.
you know, you like you see her go on that descent of just like, yeah, why am I doing this? This is just pointless.
Yeah.
And like up until the suicide, which again, like having that on film in 1960 was yeah, hugely
Yeah.
controversial.
That would have been big.
And
Yeah.
then almost afterwards as well, you can kind of yeah, you can kind of then see her kind of bounce back and like
Yeah.
yeah, you like again, it's just such a great performance from her that you don't need that,
Yeah.
and that's why the script is so good because it is funny and it is the comedy script because actually
Yeah.
it doesn't explain like there's not a bunch of exposition apart from
Yeah.
at the very start, which as you says like really sets up his character well.
Yeah.
So
And it's so quick, isn't it? Yeah. Do you
yeah.
think that's the actors were just better then, or do you think audiences are getting lazier? Do you think it's like we're just getting spoon? Like, are we getting spoon fed, or are we asking to be spoon fed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which came
yeah.
first? Yeah.
Which came first, the spoon
Yeah.
feeding or the spoon fed?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, there's lots of things that
Yeah.
come into it, but it's kind of like obviously like now all the franchises and obviously like Marvel, the Marvel
Yeah.
sort of universe, and you have to make a universe, and then there's spin-offs, and to a certain extent,
True.
it's because people want cinema's expensive. People want almost more of a guarantee to go to the cinema
Mm,
that they're going to
yeah.
like something, whereas back with at this time you would have just it would probably been $1, which obviously was expensive at the time, but like you could just go
Yeah.
to the cinema and maybe give things more of a go. And I do think yeah,
Mm,
and then that's the thing kind of now as well with the streaming, films will get picked up as long as they can bring in an
yeah.
audience. So I do think
Yeah.
there's still so many good films being made. They just, just
I think
not a lot
it's
of people go and see them, and that's kind of
yeah,
always been the way to a certain extent. Like the blockbusters were always the blockbusters,
yeah,
and I still think there was still like some just loads of really great
yeah,
filmmakers making complicated, deep
yeah,
movies that don't explain everything. Like they're never going to be the biggest movies of the year, and they never have been. Like it's always been the
yeah.
blockbusters that have.
And I think maybe it's harder, right? Like you said, like you're saying, that's probably a good description that the blockbusters were always there. So you always knew about them, but you would also hear about these little independents. But I think you're right. There's so much now that you're just sort of, and because you've got the streaming services as well, so it's not just cinema, you're kind of at a point where you're like, oh yeah, I think that sounds good. And then you watch like a bit of it and you go, oh no, I'm not sure about that. So then you move on to something else. You don't really stay with it because you're like, well, I don't need to. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, or I read the blurb and go, no, there's something else next. Whereas,
yeah,
that might have just been on TV or something. You go, oh, well, okay, it's on. And then you go,
yeah,
wow, that's actually was a really good film. But
yeah.
now I feel like you miss out on that. You just see the blockbusters and then you might get lucky if you see something else, really.
And it does change the narrative structure. Like the
Yeah.
films now do have to have more upfront in the first 10, 15 minutes to get people to keep watching than
Yeah,
they used
true.
to, and that is the impact of streaming, is that you have to write a movie differently,
Mm,
because you can't have a slow build, because people will just switch it off. And I do think that
yeah.
is an impact. I mean, even when this
Mm,
film came out, it wasn't the biggest grossing film, because you had
mm,
number one was Swiss Family Robinson, and we all know the Swiss Family Robinson universe, and
mm,
films that came out from that was just,
mm.
there was lunchboxes, there was, there was the
Yeah.
tie-ins,
Everything.
it was such a, just such a big one.
Yeah. That was maybe where Marvel started. Or for the Swiss Family Robinson. Who knew?
Number
How they
number
reversed.
two for the year was actually Psycho, which is interesting
Ah.
to have
Mm,
that
very good
to
film,
have
though.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then, like, yeah, three
Oh,
and four were Spartacus and Exodus. So again, like massive
yeah.
blockbusters,
Yeah.
kind of, going in. And the thing, because that's the thing, like Billy Wilder, at the time as well, like he was known for the scripts and everything like that. And if you have like, you know, kind of, the a Will Ferrell film, or like, things like that,
Yeah.
they'll still, an Adam Sandler film, they'll still get lots of
Yeah.
viewers today, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it is just I think there is some
The
depth
world
to
we live
those
in.
films as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think
I
it's
mean, I
always
think
been kind of the same.
there's a time and a place, isn't there? For I always feel like, like I feel like in a way it's a shame for
The
someone like
dance,
say
you
Jason
can say
Statham. Yeah, dance. There's always a
there's a
dance for everyone.
time and a place to dance.
For a
That's
dance.
Footloose quote there.
Um, um, yeah, I think like he's actually quite a good actor, but he's just found his sort of little niche, which is just
Yeah.
doing silly one-liners, doing action films. And I'm not dissing them. Many a time I've just wanted to just sit down and just watch a rubbish film, and I've gone through most of the back catalogue of Jason Statham. Um, but yeah, you're right. Maybe there are little different segments and things that people fall into. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's just too much of it now, and that's what makes it's
Yeah.
harder to find those gems that you might have watched now, I think, than it would have been previously.
Yeah. I think it takes more work to do it. And so it's
Mm,
easier to not do it, I would say. And I think that's where,
yeah,
like,
true.
you get pushed media all the time from all of the streaming people, and
Yeah,
like that more than the cinema. The thing that I do think has an impact is not just watching that random movie that you catch two-thirds, a third of the
yeah,
way
exactly.
through on TV just because it's on. And I do
Yeah.
think that there's some great films, many of which are on this
Mm.
list, that yeah, I just happen to watch
Yeah.
because they're on TV, which again is someone else curating the content, right? It's not like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was amazing, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think that the problem is that, again, as the attention, economy, right? So people are
Yeah.
only interested in films that they know that people are going to watch, and so then they're going to put those on because it's just more about, putting them on.
Yeah.
I did watch this on Amazon Prime, and there was
Oh yeah.
adverts, which annoyed me
Yeah.
no end. So actually, I
It's
turned it
very
off and
frustrating.
put on the DVD, and I was like, "Good, I own this. This is why I own DVDs."
Yeah, that is super annoying that they just did that. I mean, I get why they've done it and I understand their business model, but
Oh yeah, because they're really they're
they're
really on the
struggling
bread
for
line.
money.
Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. Like, yeah, they employ a lot
No,
of
I mean,
people. They aren't doing so well now. You know, they
well, if you,
definitely need to
yeah,
increase their profits. There's one thing I've always said about Amazon is
they need
you've
more
got to
money.
improve your profits.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. But it was, I don't know how they got away with introducing it into memberships that were already in place. Like it should have been grandfathered. So it should have only happened after your membership was renewed.
Yeah,
It shouldn't have just been allowed to go straight on. But that's the world
we'll
of
lose
Amazon. That's a different podcast.
we'll lose
I was going to
another
ask you.
sponsor and another alternate sponsor.
Yeah. Honestly, I've got a beef with Amazon at the moment. So, you know, if anyone wants to talk to me about that, come you know, hit me up. Because I've had the terrible customer service. Anyway, I'm not using it at the moment. I was going to ask you, does this qualify as a Christmas movie? Because there's quite a good amount of Christmas in this.
Yeah. Interestingly,
and there's Father Christmas, which Poppy said that qualifies it as a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's not particularly good about the Christmas. I don't think.
He's still there. He's still there.
He's getting a few drinks in before he has to go out. It's always it's funny. It's not a Christmas movie. Almost like more the gap between Christmas and New Year movie. Like I do think actually it speaks quite well to that week in between where you're like, oh, Christmas, like full of promise, and then then it's over, and then you have New Year, and then you're like, oh, okay, well now I guess it's New Year, and
another
the fact
year.
that he quits in between as well, but like also gets promoted. I think, I did. I mean, it's
a tough one.
Yeah, having a one night stand on Christmas Eve, like that's not good.
There you go.
That's not that's not a
life
happy,
decisions. Yeah. So you really need to be thinking about what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially as her husband's in jail in Cuba. So you know.
Oh, yeah, poor guy. Favorite lines then?
Yeah, I mean, so many of them. I mean, that line that you already mentioned is great.
Yeah,
especially at the end of it. Now I ask you, is that fair? No, it's very unfair, especially to your wife. Like I love the fact that he kind of gets that in. I love it just even at the beginning when she's going to take a taxi back, and he says, "Oh, why do you dames all live in the Bronx?" And she says, "Oh, you mean you bring other girls in?" He says, "Certainly not. I'm a happily married man." And you're just like,
like it's his default reaction that he's ready if ever he gets asked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I love the line when the guy's dictating and he says premium wise and billing wise, we're 18% ahead of last year, October wise. And obviously it's in December. And so you're just like, oh yeah, if you compare now to last year, but a lot earlier, then
it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do, when the neighbor asks if he has any napkins, and he says, "I have paper towels," and she just says, "Beatnik." I was like, yeah, that like dates
I missed
it a little
that,
bit, but I just love the fact that she's just like, oh, I like Beatnik, which obviously give it 10 more years, it would be such a hippie. The doctor says nice veins, which is a very strange, very strange compliment.
He's an interesting character, that guy, isn't he? He's like obviously super helpful, but also a little bit weird and creepy.
Nominated for best supporting actor. That was
he's good in it. I'll give him that.
She says we've got it on long playing record music to string her along to, and I was like, that's almost the name of the pod. I was like,
so close.
That would have been great.
Do we change the name now? Sponsored by the apartment.
Just so we can have Shirley MacLaine say the title. That was close.
We could probably deep fake it now, I imagine. So
exactly. Yeah,
we'll change it.
It's all fake. I think that some people are takers, some people get took. Is the entire thing around that? I think is great.
Yeah.
I love it when he says, "I fired my secretary got to my wife, and my wife has fired me." You're just kind of like, yeah, again, that's just a slick way to do it.
Yeah.
And just the last one when he says about, "Oh no, I never eat alone." The other night I had dinner with Mae West. Of
Yeah.
course, she was much younger then. Is again like,
Yeah.
yeah, just very, very good.
Yeah.
Did you
That was a nice one. That was subtle.
any others?
I had a couple. There was one which she says when she's talking to what's his name, Jack Lemmon, and she says, "When you're in love with a married man," I think it's Jack Lemmon. Anyway, she says, "When
Yeah.
you're in love with a married man, you shouldn't ever wear mascara." I was
Yeah,
like, that was a good one.
there's a
And
good
then
one.
at the end, when they're at the bar and he meets that woman, and she says, "If you buy me a drink, I'll buy you some music." And she was going to put some money in the jukebox. I was like, I
Yeah,
like that. That's cool.
yeah,
That's a good
that's good.
start to a date. Someone gets the drink, someone gets the music. Yeah.
That can be your new one. You could have that
Yeah.
as your quote on your profile, and then you can
That
see
would
if
be great.
anyone's
Yeah.
seen the apartment.
And see if anyone just goes, right, I'm just going to open up my Spotify playlist and or iTunes music, something like that, buy an album.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do we think the shut up and deal is obviously next week we may or may not have another example of good responses to "I love you." I do think the shut up and deal is is a good response to it as well.
Yeah.
Especially I do like the ending.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a nice finish to the film. It finishes off just nicely, and then they do that. I don't know if you noticed this, but at the end, he's dealing a million cards because obviously they're only playing gin rummy. You only need 8 cards or 7 cards.
Yeah,
and they keep just putting them down and picking them up and looking at each other. And I was like, that was quite a nice little funny scene. I don't know if anyone necessarily noticed.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I think they round it off quite nicely, and I think that's a good line from her as well. I think if it come from him, it wouldn't have had the same impact. I like it that it came from her.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and she's that's the thing, because again, like, I don't think that they've particularly got chemistry, and so actually, it's more you kind of almost feel like, are they are they just going to be friends, or are they just going to almost like live together, but actually just be friends, or I don't know, like that. That's why I think it can be sweet, because I don't think they lean in on the chemistry between the two of them. He's just trying to be a better man. She just needs someone to be a bit better to her, and I think that's why it's nice and it's sweet.
Yeah, I think you're right. That I'm just thinking that now. Maybe that's why I like this movie, because it's not really romance. It's it's actually just it's like almost non-romance. And you're right, they almost you're like, what are they going to do? Are they going to get together? Is she really that fast?
Yeah,
Maybe not. Yeah,
and that's the thing, is it's kind of not the point. And because
No,
even in a lot of the scenes, they are like where they would be romantic, like especially like with when she first sees Sheldrick and like in the bar, and obviously that like that kind of it's a Casablanca, it's noir, it's especially black and white movies, and I think that's part of the sensibility of it as well. That's where the guy and the girl are flirting, like, and Bogart, and kind of I think there's a lot that goes with it, but they're talking about the fact that they've been having an affair, and she's like, this is, you're never going to leave your wife. I never asked you to leave you. And so the script is so good, because the script is so different to what that scene is usually in a black and white movie, or a movie from that time, that it's not romantic at all. It's like real kind of reality, quite dirty and scummy, and he's treated her badly, and she isn't, is trying not to fall for it again, and stuff like that. And I think, again, it just sort of, it does kind of go against what you think the scene is going to be, because it's not like she's just swooning into his arms. You're like, no, that he's a wrong 'un, and that is very clear, and yet sort of it still happens. And
sort of that's a good point, actually. I didn't really think that. It'll be good to watch this again, because you're right, there's a lot of scenes actually that were probably dealt with differently to how you would normally see them in like you said, this type of film, and that is a good example. You're definitely right. She knows exactly what the situation is. She's very understanding of it, and she's just trying, like, oh dear, do I do this again? Like, I've got to go to work. Can I be, it's a good, I like it. You're right, it's a good scene.
Yeah.
Reviews then. I reckon
not too many.
No?
Not too many
Okay.
3-star reviews. I think most people love it or hate it. One just very, very cryptic, almost the beginning of a novel or even a haiku. I bought it for a friend. He loved it. I will buy him a few more he wants. He's not got internet. I feel like that could be a haiku if we could work that out. You know, so you know, he loved the film, but still only 3 stars. It's a friend.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with their relationship? Why does he not have internet? Why is someone
Also,
buying films for him?
Why does he not rate his friends' reviews? Yeah, but he's like, he thinks it's amazing. I reckon that means it's only 3 stars. That's really
he really liked it. He loved it.
Yeah.
3 stars. Because, you know, I don't think his taste not so good.
Not great, no.
Yeah, and then someone begins the review with, first, why only 3 stars? Well, I can't honestly say I love or even much like this film. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, the fact that you have 3 stars, is there. And then
the black hole that is 3-star reviews. It's just that we never fail to find them, do we?
Yeah, this week's 3-star reviews. I think everyone, either loves or hates this movie. So not too much, but I bought it for a friend. He loved it. I will buy him a few more he wants. He has not got internet. That's a haiku as far as I'm concerned.
It's very poignant.
Yeah.
If anyone should take anything away from this pod this week, you know, take that away.
3 stars.
Take that away and work with it.
I bought it for a friend. He loved it. So best double feature.
I struggled a bit with this one because I haven't seen as many classics. I think there's probably more classics that could fit within this. But I did, as a joke, I said The Visitor. I thought that could be.
But you know, an update to it. It's
yeah. I don't want anyone.
We can laugh now. Film. That shows how far we've come.
I'm still in therapy. But Rear Window, that was the other one I thought could be a good double feature. Okay. That was my other sort of choice. But what about you?
I went for Clueless. I think, like, you know, almost sort of seeing
the script.
it. And like, sort of almost I think you can. There's so many comparisons with the script, with kind of it being like a comedy, but also a tragedy, and I think Clueless does that as well very well. It's a great script, but actually, like, again, the story is about growing up and not realizing or realizing that life is different.
What is happening? That's really good, actually. I think that would be a good. I didn't think about that for the algo, but I think that probably would have been quite a good. Because the algo I found very difficult because it's very few films that would be very similar to this. So I could only get like some elements, and I went down one path and thought, I'll look at that piece. So I went down like the piece of like the differences between like the boss and the employees and like the sort of fighting between that. So I thought of like The Devil Wears Prada or Horrible Bosses. That's where I was thinking. But I struggled with this one. What did the algo have?
The algo had Up in the Air, which is a bit of a strange one. 500 Days of Summer, Crazy Stupid
Definitely
Love,
not.
Groundhog Day, Eternal Sunshine. You've got Mail, like that. Eternal Sunshine, kind of like a little bit because but that's not a comedy. It's not very funny.
No, exactly.
The one that you and the algo both missed, I think, is actually High Fidelity. Because it's about a guy who's actually a bit of a scumbag, but goes on a bit of a journey to be a bit less of a scumbag with a strong female lead. So that was the one that
there you go. Andy comes in with a late surge, starts off on 1 point.
Well, but we
can you catch
actually I think we'd said though that it's was it more that the algo had to be right, or was it more that you had to be right?
I mean, I think
we'll call it a draw because you didn't.
I feel like
you both didn't get it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely more right than the algo, but I think that's fair. Mine weren't great either. But
and
it's a hard one to. It's hard to. There's not really anything else out there that's like it. It is quite unique in that way, and I think you're right.
Yeah.
Alpha would be a good one.
I mean, interesting as well, because I feel like the algo always has a bias to very recent films, which is I think is interesting, because almost what would be good is for any of the films for the algo to work to tell you a film from the 60s that it's like, because then you could discover new films. Whereas it feels like it's always trying to give you a film from, you know, the last 20 years, which is I'm surprised like there was
the prompt in.
Yeah, you know, exactly. Yeah,
a worker can't blame his tools. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how many films have they fed into the algo? Is it just everything from 1992, and that was it?
And that was it. Yeah. So it's number 41. Where's it going on the list?
Yeah, it's gonna stay at 41. I think 41 is a good placement for it. So we still have 51 open. So one film has to slip out of the top 50.
Drop out.
And then we have 44 as well. Actually, we've done well to like shift everything around, so there's not too many numbers.
I worry that we're not moving them around now because you're worried about having gaps.
It's all
I have to remove this list so you don't have this list, and you're just more honest. I go, this is terrible. It's going down to 62.
But you know, that's you can't leave something that's going to be miles back, otherwise what's going to happen? This is place. It's comfortably in the top 50. Like 41. Nice. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's like it is a classic. I do really like it. So
nice.
How about you then? Obviously, sounds like it was a positive experience.
Yeah, definitely went into the good section. So that was good. So that was within the a good section. That now the ones that I haven't seen are now making up 40% of that section, which is good. For those interested, the bad section, 100% are made up of ones that I haven't seen.
That is interesting. So there's no film that you've seen on my list so far that you think is a bad movie.
Yes. Correct.
That's a positive way to look at it. I know, but that's quite interesting. That there's nothing that you've seen so it's not like you've seen the list and you've gone like, that movie. What's that movie doing?
No, but now I have trauma about the back end of the list, which was the dark days, 100 to 90. But interesting, isn't it? Actually, you're right. And then in the OK section, it's pretty much 50-50 between seen and not seen. So just a little added little stat for everyone. So I put it at number 23. So just at the, slightly
above
lower
the relegation
good section. Yeah. So above Lord of the Rings and below Philadelphia. So
Hanks outdoes it. Wow.
Yeah, I was thinking Philadelphia. I did like this. This was a good film. There wasn't anything that was specifically bad about it, but I think Philadelphia is it was more enjoyable watching it the first time. I mean, obviously, it's a very good film. There's a lot of stuff in it. But so there it is.
Interesting. Awesome. Wow. We keep going on up to number 40 next week, where we will hear that many Bothans died to bring us this information. Which do you have any ideas about that? Do you know?
I think I do. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, I think I know. Yeah. For a bit.
People who know will know. People that don't won't. Awesome. Well, thanks to Tom Miller for the theme song. We're gonna go close the shop and have a few hands of gin rummy. I think. We'll see who can win.
It's funny you just said it because I was just thinking it's been so long actually since I've done the first word reaction. I was just thinking, oh yeah, this is me. I've got to talk. Yeah, because we've actually done a good little run, haven't we, of guests?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
It's been a few.
Yeah.